78, did it start?
6 o'clock, and we all stand to the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the January 21, 2020 Water Board meeting. To comply with the Title Civil Rights Act 1964, the city requests that participants in the meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that is available on the back of the table in the back of the room. Roll call vote, Donna.
Frank,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Tony,
Here.
and Chuck and Frank are absent. I'm sorry. I got out of Chuck and Robin are absent. That was a struggle.
The minutes have been approved. Is there any objections or corrections?
Nope.
Minutes have been approved. New business. Mr. Darren, HNTB. Got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, is that it? Okay. We'll set back down.
Take your time.
Couple things here, kind of bring you up to date. From a cost standpoint, I think this month you're approving their pay request for the total to date is about a little $4.8 million. For guys that like percentages, that's about 24% of the overall cost so far. We're 205 days since the notice proceed. That's roughly 6.8 months, and if you want percentages, we're about 29% to substantial completion. Substantial completion is 700 days, so 205 of 700 days, so it's roughly 29% as that's been used up. We got 495 days till substantial completion, so a little over a year at that point. As far as total time spent to final completion, which is 940 days, we're about 22%. So kind of give you an idea where it's into the project. They are making pretty good progress. Weather this winter's been actually pretty good for construction. Short of this week has caused a few problems. When it gets really cold like this, it shuts things down a little bit. But they've, for the most part, been able to continue to pour concrete, along with provisions for cold weather, putting heat, external heat, and blankets are covering things, and scheduling the days when the temperature gets above 40 degrees, that sort of thing. The masons are, and I'll show you some pictures here, the pump electrical building, most of the masonry work is done, at least the block is done. Of course, it gets a brick veneer later on. They put the trusses, the roof trusses in this past week. Most of the decking's on place that was put on today. Their goal is in the next 2 to 3 weeks to get that building weather tight so that they can start to get it dried out, and then they can start to coat the interior walls, and then they can start working on putting some of the equipment in there, the pumps, and more likely the electrical contractor will bring in and start pulling those wires and setting some of his panels for the electrical room in there. So that building's moving along pretty well. The clear well, they've got all the walls done. They've tensioned all, post-tension or tensioned all the walls, if I said it right, Ron. They still have to grout those pockets where they pulled the tension wires. Unfortunately, grout, they can't. It's got to be above 40 degrees, so that's kind of been on a little bit of a hold since they can't do the grouting. They really haven't done setting the forms up to do the roof as well. So that structure is not on their critical path. So until the weather gets a little better, that probably will pull off working on that area a little bit. They are making pretty good progress on the water treatment plant building themselves. If you drive out there now, they've got most of the filters 1 through 4, a lot of that concrete work poured. They've got about half of the chemical feed foundation and slabs poured. They've started to lay the block wall up on the west side for the admin, and then along the north side for the chemical feed rooms themselves. They're planning another big pour. They were hoping to do this week, but right now the temperature's not cooperating very well with them. So not only do they have to be, ambient temperature has to be above 32, but right now the ground's frozen, there's stones frozen, so they got to make sure that gets unthawed before they can pour that. But they're trying to pour the big slab, which is basically the concrete slab for the admin area, along with a couple of the chemical feed upper portion slabs. So it's getting closer and closer to look like a building here, and we'll show some pictures here. They've done some underground piping. They've relocated the water line. They've relocated, for the most part, the gravity sewer line. And next week, I think the electrician's supposed to get back in and run some conduit between the new water treatment plant and the pump electrical building. So most trades are working. Like I said, are working toward getting some of these buildings up so they can enclose them and keep working. Their plan is, I think we approved the brick color today, so the brick is scheduled to arrive, I think, early March. So that should work out well. Hopefully by March that we're not dealing with really cold temperatures, and they can start they don't have to tent the structures to put the brick in there and for the mortar. So they are tenting. Like I said, they tented the pump electrical building to install that masonry work, and they are also tenting as needed on the treatment plant building. And the best part, I'll show you some pictures here.
Who approved the brick color?
Oh, I didn't do that by myself. I had several people, but I had the final vote, so to speak. But it's pretty close to match. It took them 3 times, so that's usually the case. It usually takes a couple times. Here we got. Can everybody see that? We're removing the final form work for the clear well, so that's the last pour they had to make. So I think that was about a week and a half ago. And there's some of the interior baffle walls on the south cell. They still have to do, on each end, there's the one that connects to the exterior wall. That still has to be done. They'll probably, like I said, they're not planning on putting any external heat in there, so this will have to wait till the weather's warm enough they can do it. And this is a shot of them where they're cutting some of that in the pilasters where they had pulled all the cables and tensioned the cables. So all those pockets have to be grounded, so that's what's slowing down. And you can see they started to put the shoring and framework to support the pour for the roof, but like I said, that was I think a week or so ago, and as of yesterday, they said they're pretty much stopped on that till we get better weather. And now we're seeing the masonry work on the pump and electrical building. Looking at that to the left, that is the electrical room, and to the right is the pump room. There'll be an interior dividing wall that basically between those 2 door openings. This is another shot of this is the top. They got a thickened block at the top where this roof joist rests on it, and you can also see the plastic tenting that they used in order to heat the building. And here we're inside the pump and electrical building, pouring the pump bases. And here they're starting to set the roof trusses. The way it's set up with the slope, and they can't do the parapet wall to the right, which would be to the west side of the building, until after they had set the trusses. So And you see most of the trusses in place. That actually goes pretty quickly. The framework you see hanging on or on top of the trusses is the openings for the skylights, the supports for the skylights. They will line up with the pump bases below. These are vertical turbine pumps, so it's got the pump and motor along with a shaft that's roughly 20 some feet. So anytime you have to work on the entire pump and shaft, you have to basically pull it up through the roof. That's the reason for the skylights. Here we're in administration area. They're setting all the plumbing and drain lines. All work has been done at this point. Here's the chemical storage rooms off the treatment plant. This would be the very north end of the treatment plant building. We're into the old existing roadway there to the right of the page, or the picture. And you can kind of see the individual rooms there a little bit. 2 of the 4 have sumps built in, so we have different floor elevations. They're containment sumps. That's where we'll have large bulk tanks. So it's designed that the sumps if the tank leaks, it can hold the spill, so it doesn't. The chemicals don't get they're contained, so to speak. Here they're pouring one of the chemical. I think that's aluminum sulfate building. It's got a blue tarp is just a vapor barrier membrane to help the concrete from sweating. I like this picture because it just shows you how much reinforcing steel is inside. This is one of the beams for that goes across by the filters. So I like the picture. So
Why is the steel yellow?
oh, I think that was just some of their marking paint and that sort of thing. I don't know that there's no particular coating on it. So I think it's just some marking stuff. Here's they're pouring a slab for one of the other chemical feed rooms. If there's anything particular. The bottom openings, the 2 openings in the bottom of the picture there, that's where the chemical feeds will go out of that and go to the various parts of the plant where they're actually supplying the chemical to. So that's what those openings are for. Here kind of you're starting to see the administration side of things. They're getting ready, like I say, want to pour this slab this week, but I look for them probably to wait till Monday because the temperatures will be a lot better by Monday. I think temperatures go up Friday, but they're calling for rain and you can't pour a slab with rain. So give you an idea where you're going to be in the building. That door opening there in the center there, it will be the main entrance to the building. And then to the right there will be the receptionist area. Then the second window to the far left there that will be the break and conference room. And then the rooms on the other end is one of the offices. Here's some of the challenges of relocating a water line in an existing site. You can see there's 1, 2, 3 different things they had to deal with and get under and over and around and tie those in. This is an old sewer line that they are parts of it they're relocating. Unfortunately, this was in a part that wasn't going to be relocated, but after seeing the hole from an old existing lateral, we got Jeff Smith out and he wanted them to replace this section. So there's a new replacement section that we put in there right outside of where we're tying in we got a doghouse manhole we're actually tying in. Basically this line ran along the south side of 5th Street. Because the building encroached into what's going to be the vacated part in the 5th, we had to relocate this sewer line a little to the north so that we could keep it out of the building, obviously. So that's the reason for that relocation. And there's the doghouse over the top of the existing sewer, and the other one's tying in, so some of those that pipe in the actual manhole, I think is just more of a form where they formed up the bench walls. That'll all get cut out later on. And there's another portion of you can kind of see how we went around the building, relocated water line. That's it. Questions?
How do you get to the skylights if you have to replace the pump?
You have to go up on top of the roof. The only issue that we've had with those things is that our spec required the skylights to be, have a fall protection, so to speak, so they're just basically a plastic, skylights, they're Arcadia skylights.
Is there something up there to hook to, or how do you?
You could either do that, we could hook to the parapet, but we didn't think that was as good, so we're requiring them to put grating over the top of them, which are fall protection that will support, I think, 250-pound person falling into it. Granted, the idea is that they're not supposed to, the number of times they should have to be up there over the life is, those pumps should give them 20+ years of service without ever having to be removed, so it's minimal. The screens cost like, I would say $200 a pop, so it was a good insurance policy to make sure they met that. So
And it was how in the drawings, you said approval of your drawings?
shop drawings. There's still a few more out there. We are getting quite a few of them. I think the last major piece of equipment is a solids contact clarifier. I think we're in our third submittal, our third review of that. We got some issues with them not giving us enough information on the motor controls and that sort of thing. The actual equipment and the structural is fine. We just need to clear up some of that. We've got this week. We've gotten a lot. We got a lot of windows and door stuff approved. Like I said, the brick was approved. The roofing was approved. The membrane roofing was approved. So we're winding down. There's still some stuff on some of the chemical feed stuff. Still hasn't gotten all the way through, but excuse me. For the most part, I think we're over the hump, hopefully. So, but yeah, we're dealing with a few things. I was venting earlier about some things, but nothing that's not solvable and fixable. So we're typical construction things that we deal with. So I won't bore you with the details. I just vent to my wife, and she just nods and okay, nice.
One quick technical question. When you pull those cables or tension those, how much do you typically get?
About 1.25 inches is what they averaged. Some were 1.5 inches, some were 3/4, but generally we're trying to get like 1.25 inches is what they're
How
pulling.
much will come out of that?
Yeah, I didn't know either. I read the test logs. We get a log of each one that they pull and how much displacement they got out of it. And they have a range what they anticipate it being, and then they actually when they do it they write they record what the measurement was. So.
I thought you said that. I just never knew how much you would get out of that pulling it. All that distance.
Yeah, so that's a complicated structure from a structural standpoint, and basically it's concrete with a bunch of cables around it squeezing it tight, so it reduces the potential shrinkage, crackings, and that sort of thing. So, other questions?
Very good.
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Ron?
Good evening.
Good evening.
When you all met last month, you reviewed and approved an agreement between the Greensburg Municipal Water Works and the state of Indiana through the Indiana Department of Transportation. That was an agreement prepared and provided to us by INDOT. And after Chuck signed on behalf of the board, they all changed their mind. Not bad, but just a change. Before, on page 1 of the agreement, it said it was in the amount of $52,769.75, and after they thought about it a little bit, they decided the agreement amount needed to be 0. And the reason for that is because INDOT has agreed to pay this is Main Street, by the way, I'm sorry. The Main Street structure over Gas Creek, the state's building, and we have a water line in there. So the INDOT is agreeing to pay 100% of the cost of relocating that water line, and the utility is agreeing to pay 0%. So we changed one number on the front page, and I'm back before you this evening asking for you to approve this revised agreement. I did provide this to Chris, and he did look at it.
Yeah, I've reviewed it, and both reviewing the new contract as well as comparing it to the old contract to ensure that there weren't any additional terms or conditions otherwise trying to sneak in. They're identical with the exception of that one change on the first page. And in fact, later on in the document, it still makes it clear that the cost of replacement is still the $52,000 and change. They're just not counting it as a contract cost on the first page, which my guess, honestly, without knowing more, is that it's probably more from a budgeting or appropriations allotment within their world. It doesn't change any of your contract terms.
It's likely cleaner on our end because now it says we're gonna put $0 in it.
Right. So in terms of the terms and conditions that are applicable to this, to you as a water board, they haven't changed. And so you're still on the hook for
If this meets with your approval, I recommend that you make a motion to approve this agreement. In the last meeting, Chuck, as president of the board, signed after you made a motion authorizing him to sign. We could either designate one of you three to represent the water board and sign it, or you could all three individually sign the agreement and we'll just make it fit on their form.
dealer's choice. I mean, as long as someone here, as long as the minutes reflect that you've agreed and you want to approve it, I don't know that it necessarily matters if all of you sign it or one of you sign it. The cleanest way, as far as the minutes are concerned, is probably just a motion to approve as amended, and then each of you sign it.
Is there room for that on?
We'll make room.
Okay. That's what.
I make a motion to approve the new contract.
I'll second.
Take a vote?
Frank,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
You sign there, then you can sign it there,
Okay.
Frank can sign it here, and I'll take care of the rest of it later. That's just a second copy to see. And I'll hang on to these done and finish filling out the rest of it, and get a copy of it, and send it back and see. Thank you, yes, we're fit.
Rick, you got anything?
I do have one thing. I apologize I didn't get it on the agenda, but it was brought to my attention just today. I was supposed to have it on there from from my mechanic. We have a 96 GMC. It's the maroon 2-wheel drive. You probably haven't seen it out for a while, but it's actually the old meter reader truck. My mechanic Joe come to me today, was looking at it, and it was something with the upper A-arm where it's bolted to the frame or mounted to the frame is completely rusted in two. So he pulled the keys out of it, and I'm just wanting to take it to the junkyard and scrap it. I know in the past we've kind of put stuff up for bids and stuff, but I would not feel this truck is safe enough for that. So I'm looking for the approval just to junk it. Or let the fire department play with it. They've I think we've sent vehicles down there before so they can train with them or whatever, so.
We'll have to do that.
Yep, you guys can do that. And you don't, there's no particular process as long as you're not selling it. So if your intention is just to scrap it, then you just need to have a motion that you are approving him to scrap the vehicle, in whatever way, shape, or form that takes.
Make a motion that you scrap the truck any way you see fit. Sledgehammers if you like.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Frank,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
That's all I have.
So you got, thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Have you done the story?
Yes, the mayor isn't here, so
Could be.
anybody else have anything to come before the
We'll
board?
probably be in trouble with the next one.
Meeting adjourned.
What was the original